huge amount of work. But there is ongoing discussions with the police, because in some situations, some of the referrals we don't need to know about. I don't need to know that there's been some texting and Facebook bullying of 2 adolescents in school who haven't got a social care record. Why should they go on our system if we've never known them before? That needs to be dealt with by other agencies. So yes, we're 733. We are targeted to outcome all our contacts within 24 hours. That's our performance target. And saying that, because of the current database that we've got, if it goes on at 5 to 5, it expires at midnight. So unless we work till midnight, which we don't, it's out of date. By the time we come in on Tuesday morning, it's already out of date. So we are really sort of, that's how we're driven in terms of making a decision. So it's a really quick turnaround. And so if we ever ring you back, if you've made a referral and we ring you back, it's really important if you can get back to us, because the clock's ticking, and then we can't get back to referrers. Sometimes we have to make a decision on what we've got, but we will write to you potentially and let you know that we haven't proceeded, but can you come back to us? What we tend to on 733, so we outcomed 495 in time, which wasn't too bad, but 163 of those were passed to referral. So that's where the senior practitioners who review all of the contacts, Jenny's job, thought they should go on to referral, i.e. piece of assessment work. And I have to say, Leslie and I, then, what did we kick back? So we actually passed 143. There were a small percentage that we said actually we didn't think it needed a social work response, and that we need to be looking either at CAF or a different response to families' needs. So it's a huge amount.
So does that mean 600 of the 733 phone calls were no action?
It would have been, if you've done your sums, you've taken 155 away from 7. Yeah.
Crikey, 600 phone calls, that's...
Or faxes or whatever.
But that's things that you're not going to take any action on.
Yeah.
So to me, that's where we've got to get our information spot on, so that we're not part of that 600 that are taking up your time by looking at it and thinking, not for us.
Because the bureaucracy on that must be enormous.
It is. If you ever want to come upstairs, I mean, it's a lovely working environment. If you come up, you wouldn't believe it's so busy, because it's calm, it's quiet. Have you been up there? It's this lovely. Yeah, you have.
I have a few times.
But it's this work that is going on. Sometimes, like now, it's a little bit more because we've got something to do by Monday. But generally, there's an air of calm while people get on and do the job that they've got to do. I mean, what is interesting for that week? You asked about what becomes child protection. I'm just trying to think if it will tell me on this, because the stats are very good. If it's child protection, it goes out as a strategy discussion, and I'm going to make an assumption, because to get to that we have to top and turn on 15th of the 8th. It doesn't go back that far. So on the 15th of the 8th we had 579 contacts, of which 122 were passed as referrals. And if I was to do a pretty, well, I don't know if it works, can't tell you, these stats don't do it, but I know we're passing out probably about 25, 30 strategy discussions to each of the 3 areas on an average. That's western, coastal and north. That's where we think there needs to be considered that the children at risk of harm. That may lead into a section 47 full CP inquiry, or it may stop at that point. One of the biggest causes of strategy discussions at the moment, which probably doesn't feature in the work you do, it may do, is around registered sex offenders who are having contact with children, and there's an audit going on currently about all RSOs who are in contact with children, and we have a duty that we have to have a strategy discussion to consider whether they're a risk to those children. So that's been quite a big piece of work at the moment. Trying to think what else I was going to say. I think going back to your point, Mel, was around looking at quality of referrals. What we did do is, because Leslie was released from her post quite a bit early, so she did some work around CAP procedures, so how we sort of process what we do. But we've also got what we call a contact form. So if somebody's, all the social workers on the phone fill this in, I can leave you a few copies if it helps. And they're based on our quality audits and some of the working together stuff. So the questions on the back, which you should be asked, are around, do you have any information regarding difficulties around domestic violence, mental illness, substance misuse and or learning disabilities? So they are questions that we need to be making sure we ask. and it clearly states at the top, is it CP, yes or no? Is it section 17, yes or no? Do you have consent? And if the answer is, if it's section 17 and no, I don't have consent, you'll probably be asked to stop at that point and go back and get consent. What we try not to do is take the story and then find out at the end of it that there isn't consent. But what we do know is that you may not know if it's CP or whether it's section 17 when you ring in, and it may be when you get to the end that the social worker says actually it really isn't CP. What we'll do is place this on file and actually ask you if you want to go back and have a conversation with mum or whatever, and then come back to us if she's happy with the referral.
So before we actually phone in to CAP, we need to have that information. That helps you to help us,
Yeah. And what we're asking is if as much as you know about them, so about, you know, do you know their ethnicity, religion, language, parents' names, children names, any professionals involved, i.e. school, health, yourselves, any other sort of agencies supporting them, is there a CAF in place, reasons for the referral, whether there's been a specific incident, so whether you've been working for the family for some months, you've been supporting mum, but what's now happened is there's been a significant injury, i.e. mother's been seriously injured in a recent assault, which has then led to you making the referral. We also record any advice we've given you in the meantime, and it's signed up by ourselves. So that's the sort of the basics that we would want, and that we would talk you through if you made a call. So I'm happy you can have this as paper.
Is that in the Council 6 procedures though?
No, this is ours, but what we've based it on is some of the stuff that we audited on. So does that make sense? Yeah. So we know that these are the standards we have to have.
So that'd be much easier. If we've got all that information, that's much easier for you to give us a decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than we've got to go back because unless we know this, we don't know what to do. Yeah, that's our way. You know.
So you can have that paper or electronically. One of the things that I know there's various sort of referral forms that agencies use. What would be really lovely is if we ever got a common one, because I know health use one, schools use something different. You've probably got something different.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because there is a standard one in the procedures.
We haven't adopted it yet though, so I think we need to look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those things in there are covered in that referral form.
We're still what I would call morphing at the moment. So it's like as we're bedding down, and there was quite a rush to get. I think the first planning meeting was probably about, wasn't until April, May, and then we had to go up money in July, so it was pretty rushed. The other thing we do is offer consultation. So if you want to ring in and just say, I'm really worried, can I talk through this scenario with you, then social workers will do that. Doesn't need names, but actually talk you through what your concerns are. They will fill in a consultation sheet, which basically just says name of whoever's consulted with us, what were the main features of concern, what advice did we give, arrangements for the follow-up, i.e. are you going to go away, talk to your manager, whatever, and come back to us, and what's clearly been agreed, and you will get a copy of that sent out to you, so you know what we think you've told us and what advice we've given you. And if you've got one thought, actually that's not right, then you need to come back to us and sort of challenge that and say, that's not my understanding of what happened. But we keep all these obviously in a folder, so we've got them for the future. So it's really trying to say, actually, we give professional advice. I'm probably running out of time, aren't I?
Yeah, but something quickly. If a probation officer makes a referral, because a lot of my referrals come in consultation with the probation officer, often the person that they'd be dealing with would perhaps be the perpetrator of domestic violence. So that they might hear that he'd harmed his partner, but they'd be unlikely to hear directly he'd harmed the child, but they might need to make a referral. That would presumably be section 17 referral, but they're not going to get agreement from the perpetrator.
They're not. But they would still, at least I would have hoped, have a conversation with that perpetrator. I mean, you say section 17, but again for me it would have to be, what is the level of violence? What are we actually talking about?
An example would be that he'd admitted to kicking his partner.
Okay.
There's a child in the house, he's saying the child didn't see it.
Okay.
The probation officer would most likely feel she'd need to make a social services referral because it's a new incident, he's on a domestic violence order. She may, you said that it shouldn't really be a case of telling them, it should be consulting with them. She may tell him, I have to make a referral, but would it be accepted?
I don't know if it's really difficult. I don't know that would necessarily meet a section 17 referral. That's the question on
so it could be.
It might be we're saying actually it's on the cusp of, and what we're I don't want to not
but
answer
if
your
it-
question, but what we're looking at doing is looking much more at using CAF, and there's some work in progress which is looking at the level of DV which falls just below our threshold, where it's either that sort of incident or we've got a repeating pattern of lower level DV, so lots of verbals that we know about, and clearly there's a need to respond to those families and to those children and those families, but it doesn't meet our threshold. And what we talk very much about, have you all heard of Kevin Pearce at all? Probably not. He's our, what's his name?
I've no idea what it's like.
But he talks about social services being an emergency service. You know, we are tier 4 and above, so we sit really high up. The days when social services worked with families that fell under that into tier 3 and tier 2 have long gone. He would also say, and I do agree with him, that actually some families, you can work with them very differently, much more productively if it's not social care's involvement. I mean, whatever people say, we get bad press, people don't want social workers generally coming around their house because we always remove children, don't we? And we take them to conference. And actually, the results have been proved to be much better, and the outcomes for children have been better working through the use of CAF and lower level. There's a lot of work going on at the moment with Esther Smurn, who's the CAF lead. I've met with her and Wendy Hill, who's the FRT, Family Resources Manager, to begin to identify cohorts of children that actually we could bring under what we call CAF Plus. I mean, there's a move to looking at how we can almost do an enhanced CAF on those sorts of children. So we've identified the lower level DV, repeat referrals, with parents where you've got children who are the FRT over 10s cohort that aren't the cusp of care that we need to get intensive FRT involved, but that we know are problematic, that the family needs some intensive work. The under 10s FRT, you've got 9-year-olds with significant behavioural problems. If we don't address that, then we know come 13, 14, they're going to be ending up bouncing around different agencies. I said the DV, and some of the homeless families that we get. So we're beginning to think, how can we work better with those sorts of families? So I think that DV is potentially one we'd be saying, actually, it sits there just below, but what we will try is let's see if we can support this family and do some work below social care threshold. So although he's kicking over the child's present, and probably most people are going, oh, it is, it was awful, but I don't know that we would take that sort of referral just on the probation officer's information.
And in that situation, would you initiate a CAF? Who would initiate the CAF?
Or would that be us? Or would that be you?
I don't know. What we have to do is, because the CAF process is still, again, it's our work in progress. Part of the system that we're going to have in place will be that the area leads that across the county will have a duty system on a daily basis, so that we in CAP can contact them to say, we've had this referral, we think this is a response, how can we take this forward? Now, if there was clearly an identified agency involved, then the CAF area lead might go and talk to them, or if not, they would look at how they can take that forward within the service, within the CAF service, really. So it's all sort of work in progress.
Undecided yet. But my understanding with the CAF is that you'd need to speak to the child directly.
We need to speak to who? You need consent from the parents, and there still needs child needs to be part of the.
So that then means that who's disclosed it to you, they then need to be
More thinking of a probation officer.
challenged that behaviour which put her
But what we might do depends, because it depends whether mother. Because it's also about who's in the family. Depends if we have any history with mum, who's obviously the victim of that, whether there's agencies involved, and we do need parental consent. Esther will say you need consent to a CAF, and again it needs to be informed consent. But actually, who within this family, network, who is there that we could best approach really to say, would you be willing to do a CAF? So it could be yourself. I don't know if any of you do CAFs here, do you? No.
We don't initiate them.
No. It could be that the child's, health visitor does it. It could be a school. It could be within the